if today you are using an interface on your computer that is not a command-driven interface, but rather is mouse, menus, and windows, you owe a debt of gratitude to this guy, pun intended. So he's also a prominent thinker and a best-selling author on the topic of how to be successful in a technology-driven business. How many books, Guy?
9.
9 books. And he's the founder of Garage Technology Ventures and alltop.com, which he'll tell you about. So please welcome Guy Kawasaki.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, one of the hazards of being in a business so long is that I've made about 5 speeches in the last week. And people now introduce me with some line about he's the elder statesman of Silicon Valley and has over 2 decades of experience in the business. And I did the math. It really is 2 decades. But that is a frightening, to think that you're introduced as an elder statesman with 2 decades. I don't remember being 2 decades old, much less having 2 decades of experience in one industry. So I really hate that kind of introduction. It's just so you know, it really pisses me off every time somebody says that. I'd much rather be known as, oh, this bright young entrepreneur who's changing the world. But that dog don't hunt anymore, I guess. So a little bit more about my background, which Alexis has so callously overlooked. I worked for Apple, as he said, from 1983 to 1987. My job was to evangelize Macintosh to software companies. So I met with software companies and convinced them to write software for a computer that had no installed base, no compiler, no hard disk, no color screen. It was like the Steve Jobs reality distortion field. That's what I had to do. And it was the most enjoyable experience of my life. It was like being paid to go to Disneyland every day. It was a great time. The Macintosh division, this is in the mid-'80s, is arguably the greatest collection of egomaniacs in the history of Silicon Valley. That's saying a lot, because there's a lot of egomaniacs in Silicon Valley. I think that record, though, has been broken by Google subsequently. So between 1984 and 2000 and so, the Mac division held that record, and then Google broke the record. We had very special treatment because we worked for Steve Jobs, unlimited supplies of fresh orange juice at $2 a bottle. Unlike any other division at Apple, we could fly first class for any flight over 2 hours, and my interpretation of that rule is that 2 hours begins from the moment you leave your apartment. So if I were going from San Francisco to Monterey, I'd fly first class. And the company back then was divided into 2 divisions. There was the P division and the L division, as in profit and loss. The P division was the Apple II division, selling boatloads of Apple IIs. The L was the loss division, was Macintosh, because we were not yet shipping, we were just spending money. Just to give an indication of what bad people we were, we would not let Apple II division people into our building, which is kind of bizarre if you think about it, working for the same company, not being allowed into the building that is part of your own company, and you were paying for that building. So I have to tell you this joke about the Mac division, which is how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 1. The Macintosh division employee holds up the light bulb and expects the universe to revolve around him. How many of you use Macs in this audience? I hope it's 95% of you. That's good. So the 5% of you who use Windows, you must be oppressed, but that's a different discussion. There's a Windows or Microsoft version of this joke, which is how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? I hope Microsoft isn't a sponsor. It is? Oh, shit. Is the Microsoft person in the room that made the sponsorship decision? You are? Oh, okay. So, the Microsoft, I love Microsoft. I use Entourage. I used to use IE until you stopped programming it 6 years ago. The Microsoft version of this joke is how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is none, because Bill Gates has declared darkness the new standard. I'll find you another sponsor next year. Let's see. I'll get Apple to sponsor you. Yeah. Early in my career, I watched many high-tech CEOs speak. And I'll tell you, I learned two things about them. First, they suck. They suck. They just suck as speakers. Second, they go long. And that's a bad combination. If you suck and you go short, it's okay. If you're good and you go long, it's okay. But if you suck and you go long, it's a bad combination. It's like being stupid and arrogant at the same time. So I try to prevent an audience from believing or perceiving that I'm sucking. That you can only do so much, but I certainly want to show you that I have respect for your time. And one of the ways I do this is I use a top 10 format so that you can always track progress through my speech. And this way that, when I'm on number 5, I'm halfway done sucking if you think I suck. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, I just came out with a book called Reality Check. It is a compendium of all my blogs and my books put together into one tome. It's 474 pages long. And I would like to give you a speech based on this book called Reality Check. It is about the realities of doing business today. It is also, I think, a very good checklist. This is a reality check checklist, if you will, about things that you should just ask yourself. Are you doing it? Is your company doing it? Is your division doing it? Is your independent business unit doing it? Because I think these are the 10 most important things for a company to do today. Having said that, I will also tell you that if you are doing these 10 things, you really don't need to buy this book. Seriously, you don't. Maybe you should write the book, but you don't need to buy it. So I would like to give you my 10 things. Now, I want to tell you that I've never seen a photographer and an audience member hold hands before. That's an interesting, how come nobody's holding my hand? It's a very loving audience. I like this audience. I have to tell you, I love photography. I love digital photography. Everybody in Silicon Valley wants to be something they're not. And I want to be a photographer. And I think the world is roughly divided into two groups of people. There's like, in calculators, for example, there's algebraic notation, and there's reverse Polish notation for HP. And in computers, there's Windows and Mac. And in photography, I think there's Canon and Nikon. And I'm a Nikon kind of guy. And so I have a D40, a D60, and a D90. So I love this business. And of course, I also know that from the outside looking in, someone like me who's not in your business, you say, wow, what a cool business, all the cool stuff, right? And you're probably in there saying, oh, guy, if you only knew the price competition, as soon as Canon comes out with something, Nikon comes out with something, and then, we're in a price battle all the time. So I understand that. On the other hand, you probably look at the venture capital business, which is what I do during the day, and you think, oh, what a great business. You sit around shucking and jiving all day. You go to these conferences. Everybody sucks up to you. Every once in a while you make a bet. 5 years later, you get 100 times back, and you ride a private jet. You use your BlackBerry during board meetings. You try to look smart 2 hours a month. How hard could that be? Venture capital business is a tough business, as I suppose yours is. So this is about the reality. The first reality that I wish that you would ask yourself is, are you truly making meaning? Is your company making meaning? By this, I mean, are you trying to change the world? Are you trying to make the world a better place? I will tell you with total certainty, and this is 25 years later, the Macintosh division was trying to make meaning. We were trying to make people's lives better by making their lives more creative and more productive. As a venture capitalist, I meet with many, many companies, and many of them tell us they want to make money. That's why we should invest in them. And my observation is that when those companies come to you and say, we want to make money because we want to buy a house that's 5,000 square feet and never furnish it, or we want to buy a German car, or a Swiss watch, or stay at the Ritz-Carlton and play golf, those companies usually fail. One fundamental reason why those companies fail is if you start a company in order to simply make money, you will attract the wrong kind of co-founders. You will attract MBAs, investment bankers, and consultants. And those are the three worst kind of people in a startup.